One of these days I found myself really contemplating the meaning of life. All in all, what is life about? What role do I play in it, and what will I like to be? Not even as in like finding my real path or my aspirations or even my dream job. Just truly, who am I? And the conclusion I got to is that I have a feeling, a sensation of who I am deeper on the inside, but I have a really hard time transferring that to the outside world. And then I wondered, why is that? Why can't I be exactly who I am? And then all of the reasons, or shall I say excuses, came directly at me. It was that I keep taking myself way too serious. I don't allow space for my real self to exist because I take everything too serious and I don't have space to shine. And I don't even think that I need to be more serious, that I am too chill about life or that I'm childish. I don't think any of that, and I never viewed myself as such a person. But for some reason, I had this deep rooted belief that everything needs to be more and more serious as life goes on. I worried too much that I wouldn't be taken seriously as I got older, so I always try to transpire that in how I dress, how I speak, how I relate to other people, always being afraid that my opinions wouldn't be taken seriously. I was afraid that my humor would be too much. So all of this basically made me tone myself down until I was a completely different person in the outside compared to what I was on the inside. Because it wasn't like I fully changed myself, because I liked who I was on the inside, but I was too afraid that people wouldn't feel the same way. And this really affected my life in general. I struggled to make friends, my work didn't seem genuine, my YouTube videos felt too serious when I myself wanted it to be more like a cozy place. And nothing was really coming across as I imagined it. Why? Because I was being something on the inside. I was telling something to myself, but then telling something else to the world. I was not aligned with who I am and who I wanted to be. So I decided that in order to take my life in the direction that I actually wanted, I will have to stop taking everything so goddamn serious. Because life, honestly, is too short for all that. So, how did I get here? Well, it wasn't a very quick process. It wasn't something that I realized in a day. Actually, it took me like a year, because a year ago I deleted all social media. I used to be trapped in it. Not because I enjoyed it or I liked spending my time there, but honestly, I was addicted. That's how social media goes. I wanted to see what everyone was doing. I'm very interested in politics and society. I study politics, so I wanted to keep up with the world. And that translated to me spending hours scrolling on Instagram and TikTok. And all that I was taking from that time was anxiety and pressure. I wasn't actually learning anything. Now that I'm off of it and I actually get my information from the right places, I have so much more active reflection over the things I learn and the things I read, the things I consume. I also got rid of this sense of being perceived all the time. I was never a person that posts a lot. Now I have my YouTube channel, but at the time I didn't. I was not very present online, but still, even like that, I let all the pressures of who I have to be and how I have to present that I got from mainly TikTok transpire into my life. So I was always worried about how others might perceive me, and that gave me a very performative feeling. I felt like most things I did were more for others than for me, and that was because I wanted them to see me in a certain way. I wanted to be taken seriously as someone who has the right tastes, the right likes, the right opinions, of course always aligned with my values. I was never that much of a people pleaser that I would swing the wrong ways away from my values just because of that, but within my, let's say, spectrum, I always wanted to have the right perspective. And that might seem like, okay, you're just not being aligned with yourself, but then my inner desires were being dismissed all the time because I needed to transpire this seriousness. Because as I said, I really had this belief that if I wasn't like that, then people wouldn't take me seriously. And this was for everything in life, as I said, even my own spiritual beliefs. But being away from social media has shown me a whole other side to life, I guess. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like I was chronically online or anything like that. I actually didn't have such a severe problem, but it felt like it for me, and that's what matters. That's why I took action, and I encourage anyone to also take action, honestly. Social media is really not the place to be. Life is so much more than that. But yeah, I realized that I am my own person and I have to be my own person for my own sanity. That I have to voice my own opinions and that I can be whoever I want and I can be however I want to be. Because that's what makes me me. And honestly, I love myself. I enjoy spending time alone because I think I'm so much fun to be around. And that's a beautiful thing to make peace with, because I'm not always thought like this. And that's when I started also finding a bit more of a whimsical side to life. I was always a child that saw the magical side to things, and I always felt this magic inside of me, I want to say. And I felt like this was really a contradiction because I see myself as this free being, a magical being, a whimsical being, and at the same time I was trying to be serious, and I don't think that really goes together. I'm not a serious person. I'm not serious all the time. I like making jokes, and the most important thing I realize is that being whimsical doesn't take away from me the capability of handling serious issues as well, Because life is meant to be enjoyed, and in the search for one's true self, which I believe is what everyone is doing at the end. We are always searching for something, and whatever we desire in life is always something that we believe will give us something from inside as well. If we look for money, we look for inner stability. If we look for love, we might be looking to feel loved. And those are all things you can give to yourself without having exactly that. So, in the search for one's true self, we have to be true to ourselves first. We have to be honest with ourselves. Otherwise, we will always feel like something's missing and nothing will ever satisfy us. If we're looking for inner stability, like I said, which I think was actually a good example, if we're looking for inner stability and we don't make our peace with it, if we don't take care of that inner feeling first, whatever amount of money you have will never cure that. You can be a billionaire and not find ever that inner peace. But going back to the topic of seriousness, I think it all ties down very well to the fact that I am a woman and that women, by default, unfortunately, in our society, are already not taken very seriously. And I felt like my way to compensate for that was to tone down whatever parts of myself that are also not very socially acceptable. Anything that might cause a bit of a rift between me and the public. But by doing that, I'm not being authentically myself, and it makes me, and I bet it makes anyone who feels like this, also feel miserable. But yeah, I was really trying to compensate. And it doesn't matter what I did because this is advice for you, so you can view that as whatever you take that as, I guess. But I think the main lesson here was that whatever I say or whatever I express myself, whether that's through my clothes, my hair, my makeup, whatever I do, whatever position I sit, even, whatever space I take, I think women always try to take as little space as possible so they're still seen as nice. Whatever I do will not take away my credibility or my seriousness because I know what I am capable of. If people judge me in a different way that I judge myself, that's on them. That's them projecting on me their own struggles and their own problems, because I know what I am capable of. And I know who I am on the inside, and that is what matters. So you have to truly be yourself with your own voice and know your boundaries, know where your limits are. That's also very important, because by taking yourself so serious, you can also put yourself in situations where you burn yourself out because you're constantly portraying something that you are not. You might not be that. If you're a very serious person, fine, but not everyone is, and you might take on things that you think you are supposed to be able to do. But no, you have to know your limits. By knowing your inner self, you will also start learning your own boundaries and your limits, and what you're okay with doing and what you're not okay with doing. So this is where we get to finally be free. When you're unapologetically yourself, when you do whatever you want to do unapologetically, that's where you become free. And that's where you will find the whimsy of life. The whimsy of life is the simplicity of the little things of your mundane daily life, and at the same time allowing yourself to move through all of those moments by being yourself, by expressing yourself in whatever way you want, without having to filter yourself out of fear of the way you're perceived. And especially for women, we are constantly being judged, analyzed, and even punished for being irrational or too much. So we tend to overcorrect ourselves, but we lose ourselves in the process. Finding yourself again is finding the whimsy. And one last lesson that I also want to share with you, and maybe someone will relate to it, so hence why I'm sharing it, is that I want to share my spiritual side more. I want to share my spirituality more. And that's one of the parts that I have been a bit more scared of showing, maybe on this YouTube channel, because I talk about politics, I talk about society a lot of times, and I think to myself sometimes that if I appear a bit more spiritual or a bit more whimsical, I guess, or magical, I might appear a bit nonsensical as well, because a lot of people will not agree with me. We all have different beliefs, but no, I can have my spiritual side. I can speak about politics when I feel like it, and I can comment on societal issues a lot of times, and nothing will take that away from me, because I know what I am capable of. And if anyone needs also this push, this confidence, here it is. You have to know deep inside of you what you are capable of. And if you feel that, take that as a sign. Hold on to that, because that is who you are. And again, especially for women, because if a man comes on a YouTube channel or podcast or even a TV program, I don't know, and they talk about God, they talk about Christianity, for example, which is a very widely accepted religion, and about politics at the same time, or about serious issues, he's taken seriously, and he can even be seen as reliable because he has this spiritual side, and he has critical thinking, and he has all of these virtues that are good in a man. But if a woman comes and speaks of maybe a less traditional religion or a less traditional type of belief system, and also speaks about other issues that are seen as serious, she's completely disregarded immediately, And I think to myself, what is the correlation here? Why does this happen? And it's purely out of misogyny. It's purely out of judgment and fear, because people also fear women who have their own structured voice, and they know what they want and they know who they are. Society unfortunately fears this. So yeah, do not be afraid, be free, and be whimsical, be yourself, be magical. We all have a little magic inside of us. Let it out. let it roam and express yourself however you feel like. I think that was the message I wanted to spread today. Let me know what you think. If you want to add something, if you want to share something, let me know. Write down on the comments. Also, maybe subscribe if this is a type of videos you like to watch. There's so much more coming, and there's already so much on my channel. Go check it out, and I'll be here again next Friday. So see you then. Bye!